I don't use headphones for this.
That's shocking. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Since
Brad,
since we've gone live, at least.
it's always a great day to be a Hoosier, but dude, what a week it was for Indiana football. What a week it was for Indiana basketball to a lesser extent. We'll get to basketball in a little bit. But holy cow, Brad, as an Indiana football fan, the whirlwind that the last 18 months have been, obviously, this doesn't feel like the culmination, but I mean, what a week, what a moment. How do you feel big picture wise? Obviously, we're going to get into the nitty gritty. The NFL draft happened this week. There was 4 commitments for Indiana football. A lot of movement in the class of 26. So we're going to get to all that. But big picture, coming off of last week, how do you feel?
In all facets, I think it's just something we can build momentum off of. And I think that's really important. It was a lot of momentum, but it's something to build off of at the velocity at which the momentum occurred. Yes? Are we with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I like the way that was put. So let's jump right into it.
It was really exciting all the way. Can't wait to talk about it, you know?
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. There's a decent amount of smoke this week. We'll get to this before we cover the NFL draft stuff. But Kurt Signetti was on Under the Hood. If you don't know what Under the Hood is, it is a show hosted by Rhett Lewis. It's incredible. I've been lacking, honestly, on catching up on the content from Under the Hood, but he's got all the coaches on there. And I believe it's going to be the last time we hear Signetti speak until the fall. So go check that out if you haven't. But I have 2 notes from that interview. The first note was Sig predicted at the time that there was going to be closer to 10 than 5 Hoosiers either drafted or on teams. He was completely correct. The total number ended up being 8. We'll see if that ends up climbing over the next couple days. And then he also said both Mendozas are students of the game. So those are my 2 takeaways from an awesome Under the Hood interview.
Awesome. Yeah. The Mendozas are good. I think we've talked about this plenty. You know my thoughts on Fernando. I think Alberto, he's going to come out. If I'm trying to like project what he's going to turn into, like he'll be obviously not the athlete Fernando is, but possibly because of adaptation, how he kind of has to play and how he's been played. And it shows in his production in high school to where he's a lot more accurate, might be a better thrower of the ball. Obviously standing at 6'2", it proposes different issues. But I think at the college level, I think he'll be exceptional from just what we're seeing so far. Year 2 in the program, getting all this buzz being to win. Obviously, it's impressive to get a starting job as in your second year, but to get the QB2 job when you were the second rated quarterback coming into your own class is very impressive.
It says a lot about who he is as a player, as a worker. And then you obviously hear Fernando talks about him and he speaks very highly of him too. So, and then for Fernando, we're starting. It's obviously really early in the 2026 NFL draft cycle, but the psychopaths that do these deep dives that start now for next year are starting to peruse the 2026 quarterback class, and they're starting to come and find Fernando Mendoza. And the more people look at his film, look at his build, listen to him talk, like they're going to fall in love with this kid the same way we've fallen in love with him. And so he's starting to pop up on draft radars. I know you had a post last week or a tweet that said something like, yeah, when Mendoza wins the Heisman, we'll just keep him at school too, because like and this is a running theme, like the national pundits are still behind when it comes to Indiana football. But the psychopaths, the people who are watching film now, they're starting to fall in love with Fernando Mendoza the same way we are.
It's exciting. I mean, he's going to end up on those big boards. The reality is, I was like, he could win the Heisman. Sure. Why not? We can throw that out there. Like, it's like kind of a lighthearted take. Like, I'm not, I don't take this shit too serious, but, but, what was I going to say? The fact of the matter is that it is loaded. Like this quarterback class, think Sam Levitt, Arch Manning, Lenore Sellers. I'm big on, like, it's leagues above what we just saw coming out of this year. And Mendoza is just going to be a part of that. And it could make sense for him to return. Like, even if he does win the Heisman, I think that's a realistic thing, because I do think that class is loaded. I was mostly pointing out the fact that Mendoza wasn't on the list was really what I was trying to make. But yeah, he's he's gonna be on that list toward the end. But we'll see.
Absolutely.
Maybe he comes back. I would love 2 years of Mendoza. That'd be ideal.
Well, here's a reason he might come back, and this is something that started circulating today from, like, I guess NIL agents or like college agents. Indiana is regarded as an extremely athlete friendly institution. And this came out from people who had nothing to gain from making these claims. So to hear third parties, like we were talking about this just before we came on air, for a third party with nothing to gain in the situation to come out and say something like that about your university, especially during a time where NIL has caused a ton of problems for other universities and is a major issue, and whether or not the university can be trusted to even uphold their end of the deal or whatever their end of the deal is. It just makes it makes you feel better about Hoosiers Connect and the way the athletic department and the individual coaches go about doing things. And again, like, the things that keep coming out about this program reaffirm the way that we feel about it and speak about it. Like, they're doing things the right way.
Yeah. It's just nice to see what we've already sort of known just following the program. Like, the signs were there, but this kind of affirms what we've been seeing from the back end. Like, it's for sure this is something special where that's I think it speaks more volumes than what it's given credit for, honestly. That type of comment, very athlete friendly, and obviously coming from a guy who's negotiating NIL, I mean, that's a fantastic sign that they're gonna do it the right way. It seems like what they're doing is the standard of what NIL kind of, at least when you handle freshmen and when you retain guys, like what that looks like kind of moving forward. It sounds like they're the one of the hallmarks of what that will look like.
Yeah, absolutely. They're an industry leader in every sense of the word. And again, like, that's the type of reputation you want your institution to have. And that goes a long way when you start talking to athletes. Like, as an athlete, you want an institution to be athlete friendly. So obviously, major, major plus.
Yeah.
This
By
one's
the
going to
way, can I
be,
pause you? Can I pause you? Am I freezing around, or is it just my end
yes.
right
No,
now?
no, you're frozen. Well, your audio is still coming through. Maybe somebody in the chat can help us out with whether or not they're hearing Brad. I can hear you. I can try and remove you from the stage and put you back.
What
Let's
about
see.
this? I figured it out.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you're much
Yeah,
better.
bang. Nailed it. Yeah, it's the
Much better.
HDMI cord. I tried to go on dual screen. Was it like it that last episode? Because I had it on.
No, it was fine. I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a
Weird,
deep
man.
cut for
Weird.
the longtime listeners of Brad and I. But we have a stat correction. Did I lose you, Brad? Are you still there?
No, I'm there. I'm there. I'm letting you go. I'm
Okay,
letting you
okay.
go. I was just going in the background
So
as I
obviously,
was ripping my vape.
we're very high on Davion Chandler. One of the things Davion Chandler did this past week was help Lawrence North set their school relay record. Really impressive. Part of that team also was Showtime Sales, who was giving Indiana some major love. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But while we were talking about Davion Chandler last week, I had maybe hyperbolically claimed that he was 6'1", 6'2", 205. He's listed 5'11", 180 on Indiana's website. So I just want to get out ahead of that and like pump the brakes on where I was saying he was at physically. That being said, that doesn't mean he's not going to be able to contribute or play at a high level. But I want to stat correct myself on who he is physically versus like what I was saying he was last week.
Even at that size, I still see him as a guy who could go outside. And
Oh, dude, I watch him play for sure.
His body control and contested catch ability is unbelievable, at least at the high school level. So I think that type of stuff kind of translates. Like, when you see it, when you see special, you kind of see it. He has it. I think our answer at the slot is coming in the fall, and he's a freshman, which is kind of why we haven't seen any action, transfer wise since the D line was addressed. It's kind of interesting to see.
There is also a long time between now and when you can stop bringing transfers in. So it'll be interesting to see if there was, but that is definitely noted that there were a couple big name receivers specifically with experience in the slot that I'm sure maybe Indiana sniffed around at, but they didn't make any serious pushes towards. I don't even think they brought anybody on campus.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything. So yeah, Davion Chandler might have a bigger role than what we were anticipating. Maybe you should have addressed that more after the Tyler Morris injury. on our behalf. That's on us. But I think
Yeah, we
Davion
talked
Chandler
about
is a
him,
guy
but
that's
you can. I mean, you can only talk about the guys that are there, right? So when
Mhm.
you're talking about spring, you're talking about spring. Now we're into this middle period where there's kind of a break, and when we come back in the fall, like those guys are going to be there. So now we talk about everybody. I don't know. I don't. I'll say this: I don't think we've done a poor job of talking about
talking
how
about
excited we
Davion
are
Chandler.
about Chandler.
Yeah, he's gonna come in. I think I'm probably just gonna put him at the slot. Well, I think I'm sold on the three-headed monster, but in terms of like our true slot option, like let's just give Bond, Kendrick, and Chandler tick. Like Chandler more so, but mix in a little Bond and Kendrick. I don't mind that at all. I like the three-headed monster with Mekhi Jackson as a compliment, and then that's kind of our slot action that we can kind of mix in package wise, rest wise, however we want to do it. It's that room. It's an exciting room for us for sure.
Yeah, there's
I,
one thing I'm definitely not worried about is this coaching staff's ability to put the receivers in a position to succeed and do so at the best of their abilities. Like this,
Mhm.
they will get those guys opportunities to have touches.
Oh, thanks, Abel. Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it, Abel.
Most
We
knowledgeable
we we got to
Hoosier
be.
football podcasters.
I don't know about that, but we
I
try and
think
be
so.
honest on here. If we make a
I'll
mistake,
say
we
it.
try and
I'll
correct it.
admit
And
it.
I'm
I'm
not
the
going to
most
say that.
knowledgeable podcaster.
If you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. So maybe you know what I'm saying.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a real saying. I don't know if that's there we go. There we go.
Appreciate it. All
Double
right, you
down.
want to let's get into Andy Staples real quick because I don't want to put too much time or effort or energy into this. I really just kind of want to talk about big picture what this means. Andy Staples on 3.
Yeah.
He put out a post spring top 25. He put 7 Big Ten teams in there. Indiana was not one of them.
I
It's
remember
just
this.
I bring this up only to say that what was it 2 or 3 weeks ago when we had Jamie Jordan on the show, we talked about would Indiana be ranked going into next year, and one like one of the things we said was they deserve to be fully, and if you're paying attention to the team, like they absolutely should be ranked. Look at the pieces they brought in, look at who they're bringing back. But it's like the legacy media, and I'll call on 3 legacy media because that's the position they've ended up taking, is like they're just slow. They just haven't figured out that like what Indiana's building here. And part of my defense of Indiana football was like going through and listing how much better Indiana was against like opponents than a lot of the teams that are on this list. And it's just again, it helps this team because they're gonna go into the season with so like a gigantic chip on their shoulder that is like almost unfair for them to have, given how talented they are and what they put on the field last year. It's just
It it's unbelievable. I mean, they finished in the top 10. There's no reason for them not to be in the top 25. I have seen questions where they're like, don't there's a lot of turnover with Indiana, but I don't think people realize that they had turnover last year and they turned out just fine. And B, you'd argue that this incoming class is stronger than last year's class as a whole. So, I mean, to not be in the top 25, it just means people aren't paying attention, and that's on them. And honestly, I like it. I like being under the radar. Helped us out last year, almost to a fault, to where toward the end the perception was so bad that we beat our opponents so badly, people didn't pay attention. And then there was an argument that since we beat our opponents so badly that we had a shitty schedule, because when the difference, it's like 8-4, 7-5, like that's like a one game. People forget this, like the perception of who's actually bad. Like there can only be one winner in a certain. So when you're in a league like the Big Ten, like 7-5 Michigan is not that bad of a team. We saw it when they whooped Alabama in the bowl game. So yeah, I don't think these schedules were as soft as people make it out to be.
so just
And
continue to carry that chip.
yeah,
It's free. It's literally free motivation for a team that definitely doesn't
love
need
it.
it, but will absolutely use it.
It's funny because this is a team that definitely should have high expectations, yet there are 0 expectations for this season, and it's great. It's awesome.
Well,
It's
they'll only be able to. I mean, they'll only be able to be under the radar for so long because
yeah.
obviously that September 20th game against Illinois, Andy Staples, number 9 ranked Illinois. That'll be a really good opportunity for this upstart, scrappy Indiana team to prove itself at home.
Yeah, this scrappy team with, I don't know. NFL
Scrappy.
draft just happened. So we just like, I don't know, Kamara, Pons is probably a first rounder. Fisher's probably going to get drafted.
Yeah, I had a creative transition into NFL draft. So I was going to say, so the voice of collegefootball.com finally launched, vocfb.com. I teased it a little bit last week. It's live. I've written a bunch of articles. I have a Shedeur article on there that came out pre-draft. You can see my thoughts about that. But we're not going to talk about Shedeur. Talked about the landing spots for CJ West and Curtis Rourke. Both of them ended up in the Bay Area. They're going to San Francisco. I have an undrafted free agent piece that's going to come out tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. But let's talk the NFL draft, Brad. Do you want to take like a big picture look first, or do you want to talk individuals? Because obviously West was taken first in the 4th round, Rourke taken 7th or in the 7th round, and then we had the undrafted free agent signings.
From what perspective? From I guess we could just start with the draft picks. First thing that stood out, obviously, it's kind of nice to have a pipeline already established year one. That's kind of sick. Clearly, they're bought into what we're doing over here. They wouldn't take 2 guys from the same school, especially with the already preconceived notions of Indiana. Clearly, they're bought in on Cignetti and what he's done in terms of the players he's coached that have gone to the league. They are fans. And, yeah, West going to a situation where their D-lines have been, at least in development-wise, have been fantastic. They've had some of the best front sevens of the past decade, and for CJ West to be chosen to be a part of that in the 4th round, to where that's too deep. He's expected to be at least the backup for them, and yeah, clearly was one of our best players, most NFL ready guys consistently. Week in and week out he was our best player by far in the Notre Dame game. He's the most NFL ready right at that moment by far, and super deserving of a 4th round pick. And then Rourke getting that backup job. Like seriously, like real talk, like Purdy or Rourke. Like
no, I want to talk about CJ. I want to talk about CJ West real quick, because in doing a little bit of a deep dive back into West and like trying to find clips of film and different plays, and like dude popped off like the entire season. He was, I think, most tackles for loss in the country for his position. Like he was unbelievable. He showed up against good teams, and like he's like taking that athlete at his size and giving it to a defensive mind like Robert Saleh. And like I'll say former Jets fan, like Robert Saleh, for whatever he was as a head coach, is a fantastic defensive coordinator, and he has the track record of developing specifically that position. And you have somebody like CJ West, who's already shown that he can come into a new system, like learn a new environment, adapt. It's just for both of those guys individually, both him and Rourke, the fits in terms of where they ended up are perfect. And the fact that they're in the same place for Hoosier fans is really cool, because like the Niners just picked up a bunch of Hoosier fans as fans.
Yeah, it's a great way to showcase the process for recruits and recruits and transfers down the line. Like, hey, you come to Indiana, we put you in a situation where you're able to go to the league as a draft pick. CJ West, obviously you have to earn it. The talent has to be there for you to be in that situation. But for him to be that first draft pick in the Cignetti era and be in a great position to have a fantastic career and be on a lot of national television to showcase to recruits what, the dream, the dream is to get drafted. Not everyone, you can be part of a fantastic class at Alabama and not be one of those guys drafted. Only about, it's class of 25, like at best 10 of those guys are going to the league. So it's like selling that vision, moving forward. It's super, important to kind of build off that. Like I said at the beginning of the show, momentum.
No, but 100%. But to Roar quickly, and the cool thing, like the CJ West, when he got selected, the pick was announced like live from Mexico, which was really cool. And then when Rourke got drafted, that pick was announced by WWE superstar Jimmy Uso, which if there's any WWE fans out there like that, it popped me. I'm not going to lie. But the 49ers released like the phone calls, like draft day phone calls for the day 3 guys, and the call to Rourke and just listening to Kyle Shanahan, talk to him and be like, I can't believe you were here. Like, we know there's some injury things. Like, we love the film. When I wrote the piece I did about Rourke, I talked about that if you just do a drive-by and you kind of look for measurables, that you're going to miss the broader picture with him. It's his accuracy, decision-making, toughness, leadership, the ability to do the right thing over and over again. When somebody like Kyle Shanahan says he watched the film and loved the film, it's like, I know that guy was sitting there studying every play, looking at the decision-making process. And so it's like, we also, to take a look at 7th-round picks that go to San Francisco, Brock Purdy is their current starting quarterback. Are they going to pay him $50 million, which is what the general public thinks he might get on the open market? Or are they going to take a look at Curtis Rourke, who has already proven again, can come in, learn a new system, adaptable to different styles of coaching, and is literally perfect for that, like, Shanahan system, to go from Mike Shanahan, the offensive coordinator, to Kyle Shanahan. Match made in heaven for that dude. I'm pumped for that kid. I'm so happy for him. Both of those guys. And then obviously we'll get to the UDFA guys in a second, but like, perfect landing
for Rourke,
spots.
how I always evaluated him was, he's a clear NFL quarterback floor, top 3. He's going to make that roster. The question is he going to be able to become a 2 and potentially be a guy where it's like on any given Sunday, we have the injury, let's go with Rourke for the weekend and see what happens. And I think he's in a great situation to do so. I'm looking up the quarterback room. He's got Purdy, Mac Jones, Rourke. He's competing with Tanner Mordecai. Like, who said this? Abel. Like Abel was saying for that roster spot. I think he is. He's a lot. I'm a big Tanner Mordecai fan. I've known about him since Oklahoma. He never really panned out to what he should have been. I think Rourke is ready now. I think he'll win that job, and I'm excited for him.
Well, if here's the thing with
Rourke. He's got to get it done.
No, here's the thing with Rourke too, is that he's coming. He literally got ACL surgery in January. So if it was full blown ACL surgery and the thing was full blown torn, which we don't know to the extent of how bad the injury was, he's 6 to 9 months before he's back. So he's probably not in a position to compete for the job this year. That being said, like, you give him a full season to integrate into the system, learn the offense, become almost coach-like in his ability to teach it to people, and then go into next season fully healthy with the chance to compete. Like, who knows what Mac Jones and Tanner Mordecai are going to be doing 18 months from now. Same for Brock Purdy. So I think the Rourke pick is more so for the future. And again, to go to a mind like Kyle Shanahan, it's like, there are certain teams where, like, they just, like, cut 7th-round picks sometimes. Like, they don't know how to use their personnel. And a team like the 49ers knows exactly what they're doing with their personnel. And it's, again, really exciting that those guys went there. And also a lot of the landing spots for the undrafted guys too. Like, really, really good landing spots for these guys.
Oh yeah. Super solid. You want to just go down the list, and yeah, 100%. Niners are one of those teams where it's like, you watch the Eagles and the Ravens draft and you're like, okay, this guy's probably going to pan out and at least contribute for them and be productive, is what you anticipate when you see those types of teams draft. So I think it speaks volumes that that's the program that is bought into what Indiana's doing.
I have the list in front of me. So the undrafted
How many
guys,
draft picks did Kentucky have this year, Peanut? Can you tell me? They had actually a few. I'm serious.
They had a first rounder.
Yeah, and they didn't even make the playoff. That's crazy. That's insane.
I love Jalen Walker.
Because I know Kentucky's a Kentucky fan who kind of just watch.
I was gonna say,
it's fine. Like, welcome.
Jalen Walker ended up in Las Vegas. To me, that's the only landing spot where, like, obviously new ownership, kind of new deal going on there. Not sure exactly what to think about how they're going to use their guys. But as far as, like, Jalen Walker in the modern NFL, yeah, is he slightly undersized to play outside linebacker? Maybe. Is he built much more like a safety? Yes. Does Budda Baker play in the box at much smaller? Yes. Like, Jalen Walker loves football, is a freaky athlete, is clocked at 22.5 miles an hour, can absolutely play special teams right now. Like, you teach that kid to play gunner. Yeah, obviously. Dude loves ball. Like, that's a guy who's, like, going to be a joy to coach. And same thing with, like, Walker, Wettig, Price, Keyshawn Williams, Horton, Karp. Like, these dudes are coaches' dreams when it comes to bringing people into the locker room. So for as much as the on-field stuff, it's the off-field stuff. Like, again, like, we saw the talk about Shedeur Sanders and kind of why he was sliding down draft boards, but like the quote unquote character concerns, like there is none of that with these dudes. Like they all love football, they all work hard, they're all willing to play special teams, they're all willing to grind. Like I don't know if he's gonna like be an all, like I'm not telling you he's gonna be all pro, but like if you're gun to my head, is Jay Walker gonna make an NFL roster? Yes.
Yeah, I think it's about him making the roster. It's the Raiders, they sucked last year. So I think he was a guy. If you've watched football and you kind of just pay attention to someone, you kind of just, it sounds not counterintuitive, but just like obvious that the teams that had the most success in college turn out to have a good chunk of those guys become starters, major contributors on very good teams and in the NFL in general, and have great careers and play for a very long time. And you could just kind of point that out to, if they make a 12-team playoff, they're probably got some really good players on them. And Jalen Walker is a guy who's a freaky athlete. Yes, undersized, so I don't know if he's going to get rotational snaps at linebacker, honestly, anytime in his career. He might fill in for injury maybe at some point, but he does fit the modern mold where linebackers are getting lighter and faster. So that benefits him, obviously, long-term. So if he just can put on some weight, but clear special teamer. It's just about him being able to execute on there. And I think a Cignetti program prepares him for that, just based on how many starters we saw playing special teams this year. He's ready to compete for that job. 100%. Just the athlete that he is, his love of the game, and the preparation from the Cignetti program. How many Hoosiers get drafted next year? Pons, Kamara. If Mendoza goes, Hemby, Cooper Surratt,
Fisher,
maybe stay. Smith.
Fisher can't stay.
Yeah, Fisher. Did I not say him? Pons, Fisher. Oh, Farrell's probably gone. Honestly, he might go pretty high. There's some NFL guys on that roster. I don't know if they all go next year.
Carter Smith.
Yeah, Pons is first round. I don't know if Angelo's watching, but I saw some mock drafts with D'Angelo Pons first round, like top 25. Yeah, Pons is first round.
This team is talented, and the thing is, like with NIL and with Indiana's position, we heard Sig talk last week that they're obviously not in that $40 million range, but they have enough money. Like that, will they be able to keep guys potentially that would go on day 3 in school an extra year? That could be really interesting for the future outlook of this roster. But first take somebody like Pons, for example. Like obviously somebody with 2 years of eligibility left, but he'll be draft eligible after next year. Obviously you want him to stay because of the talent he is, but the faster he gets to the NFL and establishes who he is, like ultimately that's like significantly more impactful, or could be not more impactful obviously on the field, but what that means for the Indiana program to have somebody like that showcasing their talent on a national level week after week is a massive deal. So like, it would sting talent wise to lose all of these guys, but like, man, like just the exposure you get from having a lot of really good players in the NFL is like, you'd be surprised at how helpful that is in recruiting. Like it's insane. And right now Indiana is doing that really with no base.
Yeah, it's all about stacking years, stacking days, like I've said time and again. So, the first year is pretty good considering it's the first time we've had multiple draft picks since 2018. Did you know that?
And it was like
for the math
to Sig's credit, he said in the Under the Hood interview that it was going to be closer to 10 guys on NFL rosters, and the number was 8. Like we just talked, Jalen Walker gonna have a chance to make an impact on special teams. Trey Wedig, he was being talked about as kind of a day 3 guy. Again, in that Under the Hood interview, Cignetti mentioned that sometimes when you're projected to go in the back half of that draft, it's better to be an undrafted free agent because you get to pick your landing spot. Wedig ends up with the Rams, which
Les Snead, close personal friend of mine, by the way.
Yeah.
Friend of mine, yes. I played high school ball with his son, yes.
Miles Price ended up in Minnesota. That's another guy who, like, obvious experience on special teams, tough, gritty, unbelievable teammate. Like it's a theme with a lot of these guys that what you're adding to the locker room is just good, positive people. So
Yeah, we'll
it's
see.
just
It's tough to be an undrafted lineman in this league.
it is tough to be undrafted,
Very
but I'm
tough.
talking about in terms of like what you're looking for in addition to on the field stuff. All of these guys have. Like Miles Price is not going to have any issues hopping on the field and playing special teams. Like Keyshawn Williams is not going to have any issues trying to play special teams. Like again, tough, gritty, tough with the ball in his hands after the catch, ends up in Pittsburgh. You think that kid matches with that city? Like Zach Horton ended up in Detroit. You think Zach Horton's a kneecap eater? I think so. Like Carp ended up in Jacksonville, and that dude was like the unsung hero of the
Duval.
Indiana defense.
I got it.
Anytime that any of his teammates or coaches can say like anything positive about him, they attack the opportunity to. Like that dude is talked about so highly among the team and his coaches, and like a lot of it's going to have to be done through special teams because the undrafted route is tough. But like if I'm going to bet on a bunch of dudes that just love football, like that's a pretty good group of guys.
Yeah, I'm not gonna show any bias, but I would bet on a bunch of dudes that did go to the playoff. I would. I bet on a lot of those guys. Winners win, and they make winning plays, and a lot of that comes in. It shows out in special teams, just your ability to just be a football player at the end of the day. And I think that's what Signet looks for. But we'll see. Time will tell. I'm excited for all these guys.
I'm pumped for all these guys.
Yeah.
Pumped for all of them. Do you want to anything else regarding the draft you want to talk about?
The draft. Anything specific? So since I'm not going multi-screen, I don't have like the guys in front of me. Miles Price, Vikings, Keyshawn Williams,
Steelers.
Those are just really good situations. It's just going to be tough. We'll see if Price and Williams can make their way specifically for them and as returners. I feel like Key Williams is a lot of he was always a big play guy, more so than Miles Price was just kind of solid. Keyshawn Williams has really legit playmaking ability, block, like tackle shedding ability. Obviously, that comes with acceleration, speed.
Dude, that dude was hard to bring down. That dude was extremely hard to bring down. Like that's a guy who, like, obviously Price, like you just said, special teams is probably his role early. It's like, again, with the way Pittsburgh develops wide receivers, like Keyshawn Williams' toughness, grittiness, ability after the catch, like that those are all stats that those dudes love. And obviously, like we said, like special teams, like none of these dudes are afraid to play special teams.
Yeah, Carpenter on the Jags. Awesome. First off, go Jags. And second,
Bears shirt.
We love Gladstone. Like we're big Gladstone guys in this fan.
This is a Gladstone podcast. I will say that.
Gladstone podcast. Young gun, super talented. I mean, trading a next year's first round for a two-way future Hall of Famer is just, I mean, that's ballsy as hell. He's gambling on the Heisman winner. I don't hate it. Yeah, and he talks about intangibly rich, which is kind of what Travis Hunter embodies, and obviously Carpenter being a gritty, 2-star, worked his way up to the Big Ten and finally gets his chance and was highly productive in college. And yeah, who's to say? He always was, he didn't show it athletically, but for whatever reason, just was making plays, nose for the football, always doing the right thing. Excited for him, honestly.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
it's a good situation because the Jags suck. So, there are jobs. It's a new regime. No one's job is safe over there. So, great situation for Carp to walk into. And
stop me if you've heard this before. High football IQ, high motor, loves the game, gritty, tough. Like,
yeah, walk on it.
Like, I'm not gonna count that guy out. At the same time, like if you were one of the guys who maybe didn't get snatched up immediately as an undrafted free agent or upset that like at this point for somebody like a Sean Asbury, like a Terry Jones, like I don't know what Tyson Lawton's plan is. I got my Lottie shirt on. Those dudes made it so damn far in their football career, so much farther than most people thought they ever could. So if they truly believe in their ability to play at the next level, like why stop now? So I would say if those guys get any wind of this, like if you believe you can do it, don't stop now. Don't let anybody tell you no. So that's my putting a bow on the NFL draft. And then obviously like you bring up that Michael Penix Washington team a lot as a team that had nobody drafted the first year, and then the second year they had 10 guys drafted. Like that's a very real possibility for this team that just had 2 guys drafted and 8 guys on rosters.
Yeah, they were a 10-win team that had 0 players drafted, went to the national championship the very next year with Penix, Rome, a ton of NFL guys, obviously, including Finatu or whatever on the Seahawks. Yeah, I already made comparisons to that team to this team. Obviously, they had a little, they lost Rourke and West, so we'll see if they'll be able to fill that NFL production. But what this tells me in terms of like at the college football level, at college football playoff level, that is, competing in that tournament, what is the differentiator? And that is your ability to replace your NFL talent year in and year out. I believe Indiana has done that at the quarterback position. I think they've maintained, if not slight drop at D tackle, but we're hearing great things about the interior D line. So I have to believe we collectively replaced CJ West on the defense in the interior D line. And then at quarterback, you obviously know where I feel about Mendoza compared to Rourke. I see it as a clear upgrade, and obviously could very well be wrong. We'll see, but quarterback friendly offense. I like Mendoza's ability, tons of upside. Yeah, I think that's what matters, is replacing that NFL talent. And Washington didn't have to do it, and they were able to make a run with continuity and NFL talent.
And people keep doubting this Indiana team. I love it. All right, let's hop into the class of 2026. It was not only a massive week for Hoosiers leaving the program or graduating from the program, but it was a massive week for new Hoosiers that are going to be coming into the program. Last week when we talked about the commitment of Henry Ollinger. He was the, I believe, second commit in the class of 2026. That's now up to 6. They were extremely active last week. They brought in Rodney White, defensive tackle from the DMV. He did a dope video on his Twitter page about like being doubted and being in a different position next year. So, like, obviously really looking forward to following him. Casimir Hicks, cornerback, in-state kid from Indiana, which depending on which site you look at, he's either the number 3 or number 1 rated player in the state. I believe Zach Osterman had this, but I think a bunch of other people had this too. If that holds true and he ends up being the number 1 player in the state, I think it'd be the first time in a really long time, if not ever, that Indiana brought in the number 1 player in the state of Indiana. So that commitment's a massive deal. And then on the back end of that commitment, we got the best players in Indiana play in Indiana tweet from Monsieur Showtime Sales, who's a top 10. Monshun. Yeah, I gotta say it correctly. Top 10 player in the class of 2027. Obviously, also from the state of Indiana. He was part of that relay team with Davion Chandler. He's a Lawrence North kid, highly coveted recruit. So to see that type of energy around Indiana was very, very cool. And then
seeing that from Monshun Sales, who, I mean, if we're able to pull that off, that's going to be the biggest commitment in possibly Indiana sports history. Not just, that'd be bigger than getting, that Damon Bailey, Steve Alford back in the day. Like, that's Romeo Langford. It's bigger than all that in terms of, I think, impact on what this team could be. Like, could be very well getting your own Jeremiah Smith, Julio Jones. No, I mean, this is a guy at 6'5" track speed. He's right in our backyard. Let's just go for it. Like, shoot for the stars here.
Have to go for it.
And at this point, all our chips in that one.
100%. But Hicks wasn't the last commitment of that day. I believe that was on Friday. Later in the day, Friday, Jacob Savage, number 1 athlete in Kentucky. We've noted him a couple times on the show. He's coming to Indiana to play linebacker. So in his like load up to his commitment, he had it on Instagram Live, and one of his coaches, I don't know if it was head coach or whatever, basically was like, if you don't have 2,000 all-purpose yards and 150 tackles, like, you had a bad year this upcoming year. And I was like, that's a ridiculous standard to set for somebody. Then you look at his junior stats, there's like 147 tackles and 1,900 yards or something stupid like that. So his highlights are absolutely hilarious. I have no idea the level of competition he's playing against, but in terms of like an athlete, like, they're like, again, it just fits the mold of the types of linebackers they bring in. Is like, it looks like he fits the build of Bryant Haynes linebacker.
I mean, when it comes to just like figuring out whether these guys are going to be good, obviously just time will tell. No one knows anything, whether it comes to the draft or the or like recruiting or anything like that. But from what we've seen, Cignetti as an evaluator, I mean, these guys are definitely going to be qualified to play at the Big Ten level. I think there's clear things that he looks for. He's even said it publicly, what he looks in. So just trusting all this. And once again, I want to point out defensive staff, once again, ahead of the curve of the offensive staff. Recruiting wise seems to be a trend. Brian Haynes, fan of the pod. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Well, the other thing too is that wasn't even the last commitment of the last, well, I'll call it a week since we last spoke. But last night, basically, as I was about to go to bed, I can't remember if it was Instagram or Twitter or whatever, but Lawrence J. Timmons, son of Lawrence Timmons, committed to Indiana, kid out of Western Pennsylvania. The Pitt University fans were losing their minds. Like, they're like, I can't believe we didn't get this kid. And so, again, to your point, the defensive staff ahead of the offensive staff when it comes to recruiting. I mentioned in the tweet about it because he was listed as a corner that Coach Ojong might have been responsible for the recruitment. Timmons himself shouted out Coach Ola Adams in his tweet. So credit to the whole room, credit to the whole staff. Like, you look at defensive tackle, that's Coach Kuhn's room. Cornerback, that's like Rod Ojong's room. Defensive back, safety, that's Coach Ola Adams' room. Linebacker is Brian Haynes. Like, the defense is putting in work. Like, the defensive staff is recruiting their asses off right now.
Yeah, you know how I feel about gene pool evaluation philosophically. Just like, yeah, get the son of the NFL player, like get the cousin of the NFL player. Like, I think
from master of the eye
it's a smart move. Yeah,
it's a good strategy. It's a good production is the greatest indicator of production.
Yeah, obviously, from the master of the eye test himself.
But then
there's a trend. I mean, Mason Taylor, we talked about him before the show. I mean, related to the 2 Pro Bowlers, goes 3rd round. I bet money on that he's gonna, be a starter in the league at some point. Like, I think they hit that pick. I think they nailed it. But I think we hit on Timmons too.
Obviously, it's important to keep this type of momentum going. You love seeing that they're just building on talent and momentum, and it's one thing after the other, and these things build on each other. But it's like it's you never. I said this before to you, but you never truly know who's in the foxhole until the shooting starts. And like, I'm not saying this means anything, but Brian Hartline made a personal visit to Henry Ollinger like over the weekend or last week. So it's like these things aren't set in stone until they're set in stone. So I would caution not getting married to any of these guys, but just like being full blown supportive and understanding that they're kids making the best decisions for themselves. And obviously we believe Indiana is a great place for them and that it puts them in a great position to succeed. So obviously attack that with positivity. The other thing,
when Ohio State's scrambling, that's a good sign. Just
very good sign. Out there. It's an awesome that is a very much a positive sign. Also,
like, I want them shaking in their boots.
It reminds me of last year. Michigan tried to come in late on LeBron Bond and it got stiff armed.
Yeah, then
absolutely stiff armed.
Colorado, Byron Baldwin.
Yeah, stiff armed too.
Mm-hmm.
The Cignetti guy, man, he's good at what he does. But there's again to echo the defense being a little bit ahead of the offense. You've been saying all winter that obviously the class gets built around the quarterback. The guy who Indiana looks like has been targeting primarily in the class of 2026, Brody McWhorter, moved his commitment date up 14 days to the 1st. He then logged a Steve Wiltfong prediction for Mississippi State. Wiltfong got clowned last week, I think. Jackson Cantwell, who's the number 1 player in the class of 26, the offensive tackle, that he put out a prediction for him and he got laughed at by the player. So I'm not saying that means he's not coming to Indiana. That being said, when these guys put their names on the graphic, and you like to think that's coming from somewhere. If you're going to scoop a kid like that, you might as well be accurate. So I'm not a fan of that style of doing it. But if Indiana has to look elsewhere in the class of 26 for quarterback, whether that's because of the development of Alberto Mendoza, how they feel about Tyler Cherry and the other guys in that room. We know Jacob Bell's a freshman in the room who's on scholarship. I'm not sure what that means in terms of where they're going to go at quarterback, but that could be the main reason why they're probably lagging a little bit behind in terms of recruiting that side of the ball.
Yeah, it means they're not going to get their first choice at quarterback in this cycle, and I think that's a bad thing. Just putting it out there. I think what would make me a lot happier is if he does end up going to Mississippi State, if we can get their baseball coach who just got fired. That'd be huge. Thanks for doing that, Mississippi State. So honestly, that'd kind of be a fair trade. But I think obviously you've heard me say how important the quarterback is for a recruiting cycle. Getting the guy earlier the better, so you can build around it, build a foundation. It's supposed to be your foundation of each class, bringing one a year. Obviously, they have a ton of depth, bringing in 2 last year with Mendoza and Cherry, and then still bringing in Jacob Bell.
And Cherry, actually, because he's not using year of eligibility, technically is classed up or down or whatever that ends up being.
He's in the same class as Jacob Bell now.
He's
yeah, he's gonna come in as a redshirt freshman next year, and I think redshirt freshman, yeah.
So that would be Bell too, who we obviously assume is going to redshirt this year. Well. So that would be again, maybe that just means that they really like those guys in the room, and so you feel
good about it. I don't buy into this Will Fong.
I think it's more than okay to acknowledge that if they don't get somebody they were. I was gonna say I think it's okay to acknowledge that if they don't get somebody that they were outwardly going after, that like it was a swing and a miss. Few and far between has it been from this staff. It's definitely no reason to panic, but I think just kind of pointing out that they were recruiting him. Like it's not insignificant. So we'll keep an eye on it. I'm not worried about it. I'm definitely not worried about this staff's ability to recruit or develop or find a quarterback. But obviously just something to keep an eye on for the offensive side of the ball for that class. They are bringing in people left and right. I know Noodle Ferguson was on campus. I believe he's
Are these 2027 guys or 2026 guys?
I think he's a 26 guy. I know CJ Givens was on campus as well. Chase Davis and Jamison Purcell are both quarterbacks in the class of 27. They've both been on campus recently. So like this staff is, I definitely wouldn't be worried about how much effort the staff is putting into building this class. Like
clearly they're listening to me. Clearly. Clearly they're Brian Haynes is hearing me talk about important quarterback. He's just like, guys, we gotta get on this. Yeah, we gotta go. We gotta go. And yes, 4 years of Cherry. Honestly, that's huge. Like Cherry's gonna be that guy that everyone's like, he's 25 playing quarterback in college. Go on LinkedIn. Like he's gonna be that guy. He's yeah. That'll be fun.
Any closing thoughts on the class of 2026 as that starts to take shape? It's obviously extremely exciting. They're starting to build talent. This year's class is stacking up to be better than last year's class. And last year's class was pretty damn good. They're bringing in a lot of high impact guys. There's a lot of top 500 guys. Obviously, we don't care about stars. We care about production and talent. But the better you perform, the more talented guys you can attract. And so this it's shaping up very nicely.
Right. I haven't said this on the pod yet, but my recruiting for stars, the idea of stars mattering, right? I haven't said this live, right?
I'm sure you have, but go ahead.
Well, I don't think so. In a macro sense, no, in a micro sense, in microeconomics, recruiting economics, stars do not matter. Individually, the stars do not matter. Collectively, macroeconomically, recruiting wise, the stars do matter. Just look at the results of the college football playoff as an example. To get over the hump, you need to have elite NFL talent, 4 stars, 5 stars at the highest clip, produce the most NFL talent. That's just how it goes. That's just the reality of the situation. Obviously, individually, it doesn't hit every time, but it's all about evaluation. We trust Cignetti. I think a lot of these 3 stars are going to end up being NFL players one day. And we've stated before, this 2026 class is anticipated to be the best Indiana football recruiting class of all time.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, there we go.
I feel like I had a point to like nicely wrap a bow on this, and then I just completely lost it as I was listening to you speak. So we're going to keep an eye on it. Obviously, class of 2026, Indiana football is doing big things, and we'll be talking about it every week. There is another program, Brad, that's been extremely active in the transfer portal, that's been building up its roster. And there are, I would say, mixed reviews in terms of what the roster construction looks like. But since the last time we spoke about Indiana basketball, they added Nick Dorn, 6'7" guard from Elon. I believe he averaged like 15 points a game last year. They added Sam
as a
Alexis.
sophomore, right? As a sophomore.
Yeah, I believe he has eligibility left. They added Sam Alexis, 6'8", from Florida, listed as a center, played center at Chattanooga. Oh, Big Ten championship this year or bust? Do you agree? I wouldn't say or bust. I definitely wouldn't say
it's hard to
bust.
it's hard to win the Big Ten. I would say, I mean, it's definitely playoff.
Like I definitely like if Indiana goes into this season and like ends up 10-2, right? Like I'm not going to be disappointed. Like I'm going to maybe I'll be slightly disappointed, but like I obviously want to compete for the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
That being said, to acknowledge Signetti saying there are teams out here spending $40 million. Like if they have a shot to compete for the playoff, I'm with it. But I think I would actually frame it as it is a more than realistic goal to shoot for that, because if this team is as good as we think they are and Mendoza is as good as we think he is, then they're going to have a elite quarterback, one of the best in the country. The offensive line got better. The defense is going to be better based on age and experience. Like they have the pieces to go out there and beat really good teams. So I'm not like, would I be surprised if they're in a position to compete for the championship after the season? No, I wouldn't. Like I would, like they have a shot. Like they Big Ten contenders for sure. Like I don't think I everything that I've seen this offseason tells me they have every chance to compete for that, and we'll see what happens on the field. But I definitely wouldn't say or bust.
John, I got John in a pretzel with my micro philosophy for recruiting, how stars matter or not. Individually, they do not. As in a team setting, they do. There we go. In a team setting, you want more 4 or 5 stars. You want high level recruits.
Well, it's like
you want Caleb Downs on your team, is what I'm saying. But Caleb Downs,
I think when it comes down to it, you just want the best players.
Might not pan out to what he needs to be. In theory,
just because some website says somebody's a 5-star versus like what about like everybody says, like, so keeping the Caleb Downs example, like when you look at Caleb Downs, you're just like, regardless of what any website says, you're like, that's a good football player. Like I could add him to any team in the country and they would say yes. So it's like when you look at players like that, it's just if you accumulate enough of those players, you like blue chip ratio and all that stuff, like those metrics, when you track them over periods of time, like the best teams with the highest blue chip ratios, it's like it's not an exact science, and you can get lost when you just recruit based on those sites, which is why obviously we continue to say we have full faith and confidence in the guys in our rooms doing the recruiting because they're damn good at it.
Yeah. And back to the Big Ten championship or bust. Like I have a record prediction of 11-1. I don't even know if that's enough to get in the Big Ten championship game. It wasn't enough last year, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
That's a good point, dude. They went 11-1 last year and didn't play for the big. They didn't play for it, and the team that beat them didn't play for it.
Yes, PK nailed it right on the head. But they'll nail those 4 or 5 stars. They'll get the right ones. Is what's important.
I don't like predicting
the macro
records
and the micro.
I don't like predicting records only because we still don't even know what the roster is going to look like. It's April. It's so hard to do that. But I know like I'm not talking. I don't feel like I'm talking reckless about this team. Like there are like I'll give you an example. 2020 going into 2021, I was in an Uber ride or a taxi. Can't remember what it was, but like going to like my apartment in Massachusetts, and I'm like just hard selling the guy in the 2021 Indiana Hoosiers, like Michael Penix coming off an awesome year. I hadn't looked at the rosters. I couldn't tell you who was starting across. I was not nearly as in depth or focused on that team as I was. I was just going based off past success. I'm not in the trenches with this team per se, as in like I'm not in Bloomington. I'm not like actively talking to players and the team and coaches and things like that. But in terms of like paying attention and knowing personnel and like knowing how they stack up versus the rest of the country, like I don't feel like I'm talking reckless when I say like this team needs to be paid attention to. They're going to be a good football team. I am highly confident in their ability to compete with everybody on their schedule. And I'm so excited for this September 20th game and the week after against Iowa, the Illinois and Iowa matchups, because those are two teams I believe we're a tier above, and we get a chance to prove it on the field.
Well, I remember graduating after that 2020 season, and I should have seen the writing on the wall going into next year because I stayed around Bloomington for about a month after graduation, just just ripping the jungle, ripping sports, just
Yeah,
ripping
I
the
know,
town.
Brad. I was with you.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then I think one thing that stood out was the amount of times I saw football players doing the exact same thing I was. I think that's the biggest thing that stands out. I don't think this team does that. So I think that's one of the biggest differentiators in terms of why I feel so confidently about this team. And yeah, Abel, I have an Oregon Eugene dub as well, is what I have. I like us going to Eugene and winning this year. Because our guys don't go to the jungle at in
They don't even know what the jungle is. That's how locked in they are.
good. Yeah, they shouldn't know what the jungle is. It's like not even an actual bar. It's a part of a bar that they
No, I was gonna say,
shouldn't
but that
be
being
at.
said, college kids should be college kids. Enjoy yourselves, have fun, just be responsible, be respectful. And this team is. That's not something we have had to worry about. It's not something I am worried about or anticipate being worried about because of the high character, high quality individuals they recruit.
Yeah, exactly. There's plenty of time to go out. Just trust me. Like bored of it.
Sam Alexis, 6'8" center, transferred in from Florida. Previously at Chattanooga, his numbers and his production at Chattanooga obviously much better than it was at Florida. He wasn't a huge part of the championship team. You look at who Florida was playing in their front court. Very tall, very large humans. You look at Sam Alexis, 6'8", playing center, not exactly that super tall center-like build that people associate with modern college basketball. So they bring him in as an intriguing option. And then Josh Harris, I believe, was it today? Was it all the days blend together? I think that may have been today. 6'9", North Florida, same as Josiah Miles. And they brought him in as a big body as well. So I tweeted a graphic with Darren DeVries' face on it today saying, are you not entertained adding a big man in terms of like what Darren DeVries plays? There's a stat out there that like I don't think he played anyone over 6'9" last year or something like that. It was mixed responses in the replies. There are some people who kind of see the change in roster building, I'd say philosophy, as a welcome change. I feel like I'm in that camp where like we just saw the same roster get put out on the floor. I'm not necessarily opposed to switching it up, especially with new philosophies coming in. That being said, I have to acknowledge and will say that part of me does also believe that without adding a legitimate guy with size, it doesn't have to be a full-blown 7-footer, but 6'10", 6'11 style rim protector, rebounder, defensive-minded big is something that we've been saying for a month and a half that this team like is looking like it needs. I don't know if that's something they're going to go out and do, but what are your thoughts on kind of the roster construction as we sit here with 11 spots filled?
I think it's interesting. Like obviously as a basketball fan, basketball player, basketball enjoyer, I like the idea of having a 7-foot, rim protector. I think it's super helpful. I think it's nice to have. Do I think it's a require? I mean, his whole like Alexis is like the ideal DeVries center based on what they were doing last year at West Virginia, where they were top 10 in defense and didn't, like you said, didn't play a single guy over 6'9". They have, from what it sounds like, one guy, Bailey, over 6'9". Is there anyone else? And Alexis is like that 6'8" center. He's probably going to back up for Bailey from what it looks like, unless they bring in like a Federico. So it'll be interesting to see. It's definitely a new philosophy. I will leave it at this. Analytically, okay, lose rim protection, but bring in shooting. 3 is better than 2. 3 is better. 3 is greater than 2. That's where I'm at.
You look at all like the guys they brought in. All these guys
I'm not gonna freak out about this until I see it on the court. Like I gotta worry about Indiana football Big Ten championship run. I can't worry about a rebuilding basketball program right now. Like that's where we at. I understand it's an important part of Indiana University, but I'm just not gonna. I'm gonna enjoy the ride. I like the idea of bringing in all these guys that average double figures at the D1 level. I think that's a great way to go about it. They're all productive. I feel like going into camp, I feel like the only confirmed starters would be Connerway, DeVries, and Bailey. And then it kind of seems like anything could really happen rotation wise with these guys because you just don't know where they're going to be at the Big Ten level. But at least you have guys like Connerway and Reed Bailey, who I believe are certified Power 4 players, and will be able to set the tone, along with Tucker DeVries, obviously, with his scoring ability.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's obviously very clearly different. This is a team that has had two bigs for the longest time. Again, like if you're going to focus on scoring, you're going to focus on rebounding, you're going to prioritize athleticism and everyone being a threat with the basketball. I love what the roster looks like. All right, like to acknowledge what PK is saying in the chat is like, are there certain matchups where it looks like they're going to get killed in the paint? Yes. Are there counters and ways to punish teams for playing two
I
plotting
have
bigs?
a workaround.
Yes.
I have a workaround.
And I would say
Tatum Conway puts Braden Smith in a locker. That's how they don't even get it to the post. How about that? Perimeter defense so strong, can't even get it to the post. That's a real thing. You know, it takes more than one pass to get it to the post.
I don't exactly hate a new philosophy. I'll put it that way. So I'm excited for what the roster looks like. And but again, like you said, like it's definitely hard to panic or definitely take like a super negative connotation when it's not necessarily, we don't know it's not going to work. It's just different.
Yeah. And also we should be focused on football. Like, we are a football school right now. I hate to break it to everyone, but that's where we're at. We're rebuilding a basketball program that has a lot of rich tradition, history, and funding to it. Stuff doesn't happen overnight. This just doesn't. Like, I'm not even going to freak out after year one. I'm hoping this team can make the tournament, and I'm wishing them the best. Excited to see who steps up. Really excited about Nick Dorn, having 2 years of him. I think is really exciting. And yeah, and I'm a big fan of Alexis because he fits the scheme. Reed Bailey, Connerway, and Tucker DeVries are going to really carry this team long term, and it's just about who else on that roster can step up and make their way into the tournament. I think we talked about it before too. Like, I always do this thing where I compare them to UCLA, right? UCLA had a really
favorite thing to do.
Yeah, they had it. Well, it's a similar situation because they kind of blew up the roster. They had 10 freshmen in the rotation, something like that, and they had a horrible year after, Tiger Campbell and Jaime Jaquez left. And so they basically, invested some NIL, brought in, a bunch of guys that averaged double-digit points. But yet these guys were coming from, Louisville, Oregon State, Power 4 places, and, higher leagues than what we're getting right now. And they got a 7 seed. So I think it's just important to temper expectations. I like what I'm seeing. I'm not ruling out a 7 seed. I'm not ruling out a tournament berth. I'm just, we could be a 4 seed next year for all I know. It's hoops, you just got to kind of catch fire, have chemistry, be able to make shots for a 4-month period. It's not, it's such a small sample size for such a large sample size kind of sport, to be honest. That
No, 100%. And to acknowledge your like 6 or 7 seed take, I saw like a Jamie Jordan tweet from 2 days ago where he said, if you're an Indiana basketball fan, would you lock in 33rd overall in Torvik and likely a 6 or 7 seed in the tournament? Like, would you lock that in right now? And I would lock that in. I would lock that in a heartbeat.
It's all about making the tournament. It's all about.
Like, you're telling me this team as constructed right now is going to be a 6 or 7 seed? Like, yeah, I'm taking that in a heartbeat. So, but I think it's like, you're right. Like, we've been saying it for a couple of weeks, like temper expectations, be positive, be excited, but obviously like don't expect the world and then be disappointed if we don't get it. Like it's going to take some time to rebuild that versus like you look at the position football's in, it's like, that's a race car that's ready to be driven.
Yeah. So 3 roster spots remaining. Once we fill those 3, we'll bring on Parlay Pundit again and we'll have a whole episode on it.
Well, they're at 11. They're at 11. So 12, 13, 14, 15.
4
so
more
if
spots
they go to the roster limit.
If they go 15. They have 15, right? We still got to confirm that.
Dude, I'm going to be honest, and there are times in life where I don't know is an acceptable answer, and I went to go dig into the transfer, or the roster limit rules, and with the settlement and the pushback of the, there's rules right now. They might not be the rules in 2 weeks, and I'm just not confident leaning either way. There are Midwinter, off the top of my head, is a great NIL lawyer, college NCAA law person who posts a lot of his opinions on Twitter. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, definitely go check out his profile. He'll have like more detail about that kind of stuff, but it's a clusterfuck right now in terms of like what the courts and it's 15 would be my guess, but I also read somewhere that maybe at 12, if you go above 12, like then it might
Revenue
cut
share.
your rev share, but
No, we're not doing that.
that
then.
wouldn't make sense because for
This is what
football
we're
it can
rocking
go up
with,
to
then.
85, and it's just I don't know.
So then we
so
only
that-
have room for one spot, and obviously, ideally, we'd like it to be a shop locker, but it might not be, and I'm okay either way. To be honest, I kind of just trust Darren DeVries at this point. Kind of just gotta lean into it and roll with the punches, and I'll make my assessment once I watch them play a basketball game.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
Yeah. What else we got today? We're a loaded show. We didn't cover 2 hours. Probably because I'm not spewing as much as I usually do.
Well, I told you, like it's hard to like over the summer when the class of 26 is more, I guess, established, finalized. Like it's a lot less like wiggle room and movement. Like I'm gonna dive into like the huddles of these guys and write out the same style breakdowns that we had for the class
we'll
of
break
24.
them down when it's like solidified. We always do that.
But it's so hard to like dig into these guys now, knowing that there's so much time between when they officially hit the roster.
Talking about the micro and macro economics of recruiting, putting longtime listener John in a pretzel. We can't, it's not. I'm excited. I'm big on Lawrence Timmons and just getting the number 1 state guy in the state, and then getting an endorsement from Monshon Sales, a 5-star wide receiver that realistically Indiana couldn't dream of attaining, 4 years ago. It's unbelievable. It's amazing where we're at right now. Momentum wise. I think that's the theme of the day. We should call this episode Momentum is what we should do.
Momentum. Yeah, the title of this one's super long. And the
NFL draft landing spots class 26 and hashtag IUBB roster construction. So
it's just it's what we got.
Rolls off the tongue, that one.
There was you want to talk about some NFL stuff.
I do. Like,
Did
I
you?
mean, yeah. I mean, we could open it for the floor if people want to shoot me. We could open it up to Q&A. We could just open it up. You just shoot.
Yeah, that's what I have written down, Brad. I'm gonna dive into the under the hood stuff for episodes later in the off season. But like in terms of the NFL draft, like if you want to talk again, like we talked fits for Curtis Rourke, we talked fit for CJ West, we talked fits for the undrafted guys. Like we covered a lot in an hour.
Covered a lot, yeah. We did good. I think we're getting our message across for sure. I mean, Olinger, that's such a big guy. I think that guy's gonna be a stud. Wide receiver skills. He's listed as an athlete because he's playing running back, wide receiver, and linebacker for them, for his high school team. And he's definitely, I see him as a linebacker, but just having those ball skills at that position and the instincts of a running back and understanding those positions and doing it at a high level, at an all-state level, it's just huge to have. And we talk about when evaluating people, the multi-sport athlete, better yet, multi-position athlete as well. Being able to, develop.
Speaking of multi-sport athletes, I'm glad you said multi-sport athletes because obviously I love putting the spotlight on Indiana's incoming class. There are members of the class. Oh, do we have
a freak of the week? Wow.
Well, we have a freak of the week mentioned. The one-time winner freak of the week, Blake Thierry, beat all of his personal records this past week, posted about it. So shout out to Blake Thierry. Kid continues to do incredible work on the track. And yeah, like you were saying, multi-sport athletes, like these, get guys who are athletic.
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny. The last
thing about that relay team, Lawrence North. Did we talk about them?
Chandler, I did mention
Sales.
Yeah, dude, can you talk about how freaky that relay team is? Sales is 6'5". Chandler's 6 foot and looks small on that team. 5'11", 6 foot. the last thing actually, Brad, I had written down was tease guests, which you did a good job of. We'll have Pundit on later in the summer. There's some other people in the Indiana space that we're working on in communication with, talking to. So a lot of cool stuff coming. Like we said, voiceofcollegefootball.com, vocfb.com is live now. Definitely go check that out. What was I going to say? Check us out. If you didn't catch the live show, caught the end of the live show, I believe we're now fully live on everywhere you get your podcasts. So check out Indiana Hoosiers Live. Definitely check us out on YouTube. If you're watching the show, not on YouTube, if you're on Twitter or different, maybe Facebook, hop over to YouTube, hop in the chat. That's how we're able to like see and interact with different people in the chat. And follow us on Twitter at Alec Keyser, at Bradley_Loomis8. Follow the show at Indiana VOCFB on Twitter and on Instagram. Appreciate you guys for listening. Appreciate you guys for interacting in the chat.
Always appreciated. Love talking to my fans, especially you, Peanut.
Oh, this was the last thing I wanted to say, and I'm glad that it's funny. I'm scrolling Twitter, saw Kamish pop up, but Kamish tweeted something like that he was pumped up about the class, like this incoming class, and there was a Notre Dame fan who I think I've seen pop up a couple different times, basically like try and like dunk on the fact that we could be excited about the current state of this recruiting class, and that's very clearly somebody who doesn't pay attention to the pieces coming into this class. And so it's again a lot of receipts people are creating for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, it's so early to even look at a team ranking right now, recruiting wise. It's kind of just crazy.
Home run would be to bring Sig on. That's got to, everything's got to be done through the right channels, though. So we'll see. But yeah, obviously that would be the dream. Sig would be the dream.
Yeah, I have some questions for Sig.
First question.
What do you look for in a D lineman, Kurt?
First question. Thank you. Second question.
I want to know his breakdown of each position. And how he evaluates and what he looks for. He won't give me that, but he'll go high level again. But
if you could ask him, it'd be like what does the board look like? Like what is, if you're starting at 0, right? Like what does that look like in the Kurt Signetti process? Like how does he put his board together? That's what
one day.
That would be my question. It's just have a full-blown philosophy question with the guy. But then obviously that's not something that I'd want to have live, because then it's spilling the secret. So it's like, got to find a balance. But obviously just talk to that guy would be incredible. And he made an appearance at Little Five over the weekend and went full-blown off script. Mount your rocket ships, gentlemen, or whatever he told the racers.
No, I would love to have Sig on, but I mean, we've had trouble bringing on Angelo Pons. So, I mean, we'll see. What? Did I make a mistake?
Well, I was just purposely not saying whatever. It doesn't matter. But so we're gonna go through the proper channels and do the right things to be able to have the right people on. So we're working on it on the back end, and really exciting things coming in the future for both the Indiana Hoosiers and Indiana Hoosiers Live. So appreciate you guys for listening. Cool. As always, go Hoosiers.
Go Hoosiers.
Go Hoosiers. Appreciate you guys.